Should we try and draw the sky in our scenes? Look, if you've watched a number of my videos, you'll know that generally I don't worry about the sky at all, even with clouds. Quite possibly it's because there's a great big building taking up most of it anyway. But I've done more nature scenes lately, and I particularly did a video on clouds where doing the sky using tone let me define the cloud in a more satisfactory way than just with lines. So it got me thinking, when is it to the advantage of our drawing to actually draw the sky? So I've got this reference that I've had for a while, wondering how I was going to use it. This is a town in the mountains on the outskirts of Sydney. It's high for an Australian town. It's just on 1,000 metres above sea level, which I realise is not very high for a lot of the world, but for Australia it's a pretty high town. And it was a cold winter's day, in fact, but there was lots of sunshine about, but a deep blue sky that we can often have on a day such as this in winter. And there were very strong shadows being cast. So I was wanting to accentuate the strong sunlight on the sides of the building that were facing the sun in my drawing. So that's the if you like, the focus that I've got in my mind when I draw this. So before I can do this, and so I'm going to use my Copic sketch markers to put the values on in various shades of grey, of the neutral grey colour. But before I can do that, I need to get my line work done. So I'm using a 0.3 millimeter pen at this stage, and I'm just about to switch to a 0.1 millimeter pen for the drawing that's basically above this mid horizontal line that I've got there now. So I just put the awning supports in, and I think, yep, I've switched to the lighter pen. So this is to help give a sense of these buildings now further away, and just using a lighter pen, a thinner pen, reminds me to draw with a lighter touch, a slightly less substantial, less definite depiction of the architecture further away to let it sit right back. And if you'd like to have a go of putting the tone onto this and to see how you go actually drawing the sky as well, I'll post this line drawing on my channel community page. I took a photo of it before I put the marker tone onto it. So if you want, you can start more than halfway through the time it took me to do this and just work at the tone at adjusting the values. But now I've just got the final points of this grand old hotel, the Carrington Hotel, which sits really at the top of the high point of the main street of Katoomba. Down from this point, the road slopes downhill quite steeply into a beautiful wilderness escarpment with some quite stunning natural rock formations. But for now, we'll just finish the very top of the building and this very distinctive, very large chimney. I'm not sure why it has to be so large. There probably is some history attached with that. And being on just about the highest spot in the town, it certainly stands out. So here we have it. Now you can see me with a black and white copy of my reference. So I just took the colour out and then reprinted it. And it's very handy to see how the colours convert to value, because sometimes it can be hard to work out, well, how does this dark blue of the sky compare with the darker shading on the building on the right that's actually a very light beigey colour. So it makes it clear just how much, if you take out colour, the value, the lightness or darkness of the tone is in relation to other tones, to other values. Because as you've probably heard me say, we understand value against other values. So something looks light or dark according to what's next to it. And that's why it's very hard to appreciate the effect of the values we put in our drawings, particularly when we use tone or colour, until we've covered all the white that we intend to cover, because the white has a really large impact on how all the other values look. So we need to get rid of the white from the areas where we don't want it, so we can tell what looks light and what looks dark without the disruption of the light. Now, with this scene, I would normally leave the sky white and I wouldn't do the cloud at all. And so what I'm wanting to do is to see the effect it is to put value across the sky and to do the cloud as well, so that the lightest points is not the sky, but it's actually the sun shining on all the shop fronts and on the roadway. So I've been drawing this using an N0, that's N for neutral grey, to N6 and all the numbers in between. And I used actually N7 just for those supports of the awning, just so that they show over the darker awning underneath. But otherwise, N6 is the darkest value that I'm using. So I'm getting this really dark foreground done first, because it's also good, I find, to establish the darkest areas straight off if I can confidently choose what darkness that will be, because then I know what balance I need to strike as I go lighter and darker. So I decide that I'm going to do all of the scene except for the sky first, and that was partly so that we could have a look at it, and the camera will just linger there for a moment, and we'll put that in our memory, and then we'll compare it with how it looks at the end when I've put value on the sky. I use an N1 gradating up to an N2 at the top of the page for the sky, and an N0 for parts of the cloud. So generally what I'm thinking as I'm doing this is I'm using most of my values in the actual scene darker than that. So I'm more using N3, N4, N5, and then N6. So I have very little N0, N1 or N2 in the actual building ground architecture part of this drawing. And so it's important to get the contrast looking right. And one thing to notice is when I do this large brick chimney up the very top, at this stage I do it lighter. But when I put the sky in, it changes the way it looks. And so I actually darken the two sides that I put the two different values on considerably. Also the shadows of the two chimneys that are on the roof just below the big brick chimney, I darken those a couple of times once I've put the sky in, because once the sky is in and all of that white at the top of the page is gone, I have a better sense of what's what, and I discover that there are some parts that now need to be darker now that the sky is darker. That losing the white of the sky made some areas that look dark enough suddenly look a bit pale, or a bit the same as the sky, when for just interest and whatnot I needed more contrast. So here we have it. Have a good look. This is how it looks now without the sky being done, and in a moment I'll start to put the sky on. Now maybe you would have left it like this. I'd be interested to know in the comments if you think it looks better at this stage than how it looks at the end. I won't tell you what I think just yet. And don't forget, if you want to have a go doing this yourself, you'll be able to, because I've got the line photo on my channel community page. So you can take a screenshot and print it off and start just playing around with the tones. You can print off a few copies and you can do one lot. You can do one version that's more adventurous, perhaps higher contrast than the other, and see what you prefer. Now we're going to put the sky in and see what difference it makes. And notice that I will be changing the values of that chimney. Now I start with the N0, so this is the lightest value that I have, and I do the cloud, just define the cloud, and now I come in with my N1 to basically go around the cloud. And at this stage I wasn't sure whether I was going to use an to or not, although I do decide to. And I do multiple coats, if you like, of, I talk like it's as though it's paint. I do, but I go over and over with the same value as the pen dries. One thing you need to be aware of when you're doing this, where you've got dark colours, such as in the central chimney and on that decorative little gable part on the right-hand side, need to be careful sweeping a light colour across a very dark one, because sometimes the alcohol can pick up some of the darker ink from underneath and drag it into the light areas. So just need to be careful with that. So now I've got my N2, and you can see me darkening the upper part. And I'm thinking, well, I need to go over with my N1 again to remove some of the uneven patches and to create more gradation. And so this actually took me quite a long time, much longer than I expected to do the sky, but I think it's partly because I'm a bit unfamiliar creating these effects, and I also wanted to just keep looking at it and then referring back to the whole drawing. So in a moment you'll watch me redarken some areas that I hadn't made as dark originally when the sky was white. And the question to ask yourself is the effect of sunlight stronger now? And even the effect of darkening this chimney, I think, really visually creates quite a distinctive change. And this is pretty much it now, I think. So I'll take off the tape and make it look nice and clean. And what do you think? Do you think this is a better version than what we had before? Or would you have left the sky blank if you were doing it again? G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this interesting. I found it interesting. Look, I'm really not sure which one I prefer, with or without the sky. So I really would be interested in your comments. I can't make up my mind myself, but why don't you have a go and see what your experience is? But look, whatever you're drawing, however you're drawing it, whether you draw the sky or not, make sure you have fun. And I'll see you next time. Bye.